We'll call this regular city council meeting to order on October 7th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mr. Eimer? Present. Mr. Bateman?
Present.
Mr. Sanders?
Present.
Mrs. McClellan?
Present.
Mr. Parrott?
Present.
Mr. Downs?
Present.
Mrs. Ross?
Present.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Is there anybody who'd like to speak under public participation? Hold off. Okay. For the record, there's no public participation. We do have a card up here, but I'm going to ask Ms. Titus to speak after Paul on the agenda. So just for the record, there is a speaker card. So let's move on to item number 5, Paul Crombie, board member and investor for the Land of Lincoln CEO program. Paul, if you want to sit right here in the middle and pull the microphone down towards you, please.
My name's Paul Crombie. I'm the CEO of Elkhart Grain Company, and I'm an investor in and a board member of the Land of Lincoln CEO program. I'm here tonight just to ask the council to approve a $3,000 donation over 3 years, $1,000 a year to support the Land of Lincoln CEO program. We're going to be celebrating 10 years as a program this year. I'm also a father of one of the alumni from Land of Lincoln CEO, and I can tell you firsthand, it's a terrific program. It made a big impact on my son, and I've seen it make a very good impact on other students, especially since I've joined the board of the Land of Lincoln CEO. I'm afraid I was asked to do this rather recently, so I don't know if I'm supposed to field any questions or anything like that. It's a great program. I don't want to waste your guys' time. Hopefully you all know that we're very proud of it. The board is very supportive and gives a lot of its time, and we've got investors from all over the county that help us with our yearly expenses. And we have a class of 8 students this year. Over the years, we've had, we have a total of 84 alumni of the program. We have had a total of 446 business visits all around the county. We've had a lot of support from the business community in Logan County through mentorship and through investment, and it's the program, I think, is very well regarded. It's one of 47, one of 47 programs in Illinois, and there are programs that are outside of Illinois that also do this entrepreneurial model, and I think it's gaining in popularity because I think we need to encourage our young students to be looking to become leaders rather than just toeing the line. I think it's a good program for that. But again, I'll try not to waste your time. So,
Council, do you have questions for Mr. Crombie? He was asked to come in support of the agenda item 10A that's on the agenda this evening. So if you have questions, you can ask him now, or if he wants to stick around, we can do it at that time we talk about the item. Ms. Rolfs?
Well, I had a question last week when we talked about this item, and I just wonder how the students would feel about maybe twice within the next year. Some of the students come out and tell us a little bit about what they're doing in the program at that point in time, give them an opportunity to do a presentation and for us to hear what's going on.
Yeah, the students take several opportunities throughout the year to talk about business plans for their group business and for their individual businesses. So probably the best timing for that would be close to the end of the calendar year for their group business, and I'm quite sure we could have one or two of the students from this year's class come and explain a little bit about what their group business is about. The structure of the CEO program is that the students get together and do a group business and then hopefully have some success with that, because they use the success from that group business to sort of provide some starter funds for an individual business that they want to try to achieve by the end of the year. Another time would be at the end of the year, the students are actually involved in a nationwide, forgive me, it is a, well, it's a video presentation of their business idea and how it will get off the ground, the appeal that they're looking to address. We had some excellent students last year. Even though the CEO class was a little bit small last year, we had two students that were, I believe, that were finalists in a nationwide contest to explain their individual businesses, and they're pretty exciting. The ones that put a lot of work and thought into that are pretty impressive individuals. So I'm sure that they would have no problem with doing that. That's one of the thrusts of the Land of Lincoln CEO program, is to prepare young people for these types of situations, to talk to lenders, investors, customers, obviously. And last year especially, we had two of the four. First of all four did a great job, but two really stood out and did an excellent presentation. Would, I'm sure, go over very well with this group.
Thank you.
So would we follow up with you or Ms. Judd for that request to make sure it gets on your calendar?
I'd be happy to. I will reach out to Rachel after this meeting and let her know that you'd like to do that.
Okay.
And I'm sure that she can arrange something. I'm positive. So,
Okay.
One other thing, there might have been a small miscommunication. We were going to provide you with our annual report from last year. And I have those. I believe that they weren't brought to the meeting, but I have them, and I can get them back, unless you did get them.
I got a copy and I sent it around to the council for
Oh.
review. So I believe your report's in that.
Yeah, that's the annual report.
Yeah.
I can come up. I can provide. I can provide a copy for anyone who would like it. I apologize that I didn't have them with me. I came straight from work, so
Yeah, if you could send them in and we'll distribute to the council, that
absolutely.
would be great.
It's a little busy right now. I'm a little dusty. Apologize. Sorry for the next person.
Okay, are there any other questions for Mr. Crombie? Okay, thank you for taking the time to come in and speak with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I do want to go backwards. I stated for the record there was no public participation because I asked Ms. Titus to fill this card out. I think it'd be appropriate for the record to reflect that there is public participation, and especially since she's not on the agenda. So, Breanne Titus is here to speak with the council regarding the topic that is on the agenda. It's item 10C, the grant request, and she wanted to share some information and clarification regarding capsule. So, Breanne, floor is yours.
Hello, good evening. Thank you guys for the opportunity to be here. Like he said, my name is Breanne Titus. I am the Chief Visionary Officer with Community Action. And typically under that umbrella means that I do a lot of the grant writing. So I was the one that reached out to Mayor Welch and wrote the grant for the structural improvement grant. I did listen in on the September 24th meeting and the discussion that was held on that. And I just felt like I could be here to answer any questions that any of you guys may have, as well as clarify or maybe answer any questions that came out of that meeting or maybe a few misconceptions. We are a non-for-profit, we're private, we're a 501c3, we are not a government entity. We do receive government funding. 75% of our funding is federal, 13% of our funding is state. With that, however, if you are familiar with grants at all, you know that they are and can be very restrictive. One of the things that is very rarely approved in many of our grants is capital improvements, which is why this roofing problem that we've had probably for the last 10 years, the last repair was done about 15 plus years ago, is why it hasn't been taken care of before now, because a lot of our grants and programs will not approve a capital improvement to our building. It is unfortunate. If you ever were curious about our financials, all of that is public. All of that is on our website. You're more than welcome to go and view that information. We are a $12 million agency on an annual basis. However, only 10% of that is allowed to be used for operational or admin expenses for 6 of the counties that we service. And so when you kind of put all that together, when you look at our fiscal team, all of our utilities, everything that we have to pay for operationally, that's not a lot of money that is stretched out of that 12 million. And so, you know, we are being able to kind of monitor that as best as we can. We did ask for this request and also ask the county for a match, not only just to help us complete the repair, but also just to lessen the stress that's going to be on some of our other grants so that we can continue to service and provide programs to our community that we feel are vital and necessary. And so we have looked at some additional funding. I applied for a grant through IDHS several months ago. Unfortunately, we were denied, but we did request a full tear off and renovation for that grant, which was upwards of $280,000. And so that was a much larger ask. We ended up getting a couple of different bids. We did go with a lesser bid of $90,000. And we did receive some funding from our insurance company. So we were able to put that towards the repair, but we are short about $21,000. Can we squeeze the money somewhere? I'm sure that we can make that happen. We have a very amazing fiscal team. We can do that in compliance. We can do that within guidelines, and we can do that fiscally responsible. However, some of our programs have very, very slim budgets, and they have a hard time doing anything extra. And we just don't want to put stress on those programs if we can prevent that from happening, which is why, as a community organization, we came to you and, as I said, the county to ask for support of our organization for this much needed repair. I do have some pictures of some of the internal damage that has happened from this roof, being the way that it has been, if you're interested. If not, that's okay too. But I'm open to questions.
Questions? Alderman Parrott.
Yes, thank you. How much of the insurance is going for the roof, or is it going for any of the internal pieces that you were just mentioning?
Yeah, so far, all of the money that we've received from the insurance company will go straight to the roof repair rather than the internal repairs.
Thank you. And then one more quick question. So how does a 501c3, or more importantly, your 501c3, typically handle capital improvement projects? I mean, you mentioned that you could probably do it. Where's that funding coming from if it's not already, if that funding is earmarked specifically for the people that you service?
Yeah. So a lot of it comes from fundraising, private donations throughout the year. We do have a fund that is considered unrestricted donations. That's something that I manage. So any fundraising, private donations, our Cheeseburger in Paradise event that we host every year, all that money goes into that fund. And that is the money that's considered unrestricted. So we can utilize it for capital repairs if needed, or we can use it towards programs that need additional support. For example, our Meals on Wheels program, for the first time in probably 10 years, we had a wait list of about 20 people, and we were able to get them off the wait list, so we were able to service those individuals. So that's typically where that money comes from. Absolutely.
Alderman Bateman.
So I was the one that questioned the funding last week, and I'm not going to deny that I didn't. I did receive more feedback on the fact of whether you call it federal money or state money, it's still taxpayer money. So you are funded by the taxpayers, however you want to write the grant, it comes out of our pockets. The problem I'm having is I'd like to vote no, but then again, our own program does not have any rules in place for your kind of ask. There's no rules or regulations in place for non-for-profits or government entities, and since we voted for the Women's Club, which is a non-for-profit, I feel obligated to vote for this one. But I'm suggesting to the council that we take a look at our standards, because I don't want it to become practice that every entity out there comes back to the council for money, which is a limited amount of money in our budget, when we have single owners of property or business owners that have invested their own personal money and their taxes go toward that. To me, that's more of what this program is for, is to help those people out. They've invested hundreds of thousands in buying their buildings and need help repairing those buildings, especially the ones downtown or just anywhere here in town. So I won't hold up this vote. I'm not saying that you guys don't do great work, but there is a lot of eyeballs on the fact that it is a government-funded entity now coming to a government-funded entity for money.
Yes, and thank you for saying that. One of the things I was also thinking throughout this process was, yes, we are a nonprofit. We do not pay taxes. We do not pay property taxes. We do receive federal and state money. However, we do support the low-income taxpayer. We do also support the working poor. Even though we're not taxpayers, we do stimulate the economy very well. Just some of those examples here locally. We pay the utility companies and the landlords when our customers cannot. We also do a lot of business with Cisco. All of our food for Meals on Wheels and Head Start come through Cisco. Our agency insurance is through a local broker. We buy all of our vehicles locally. We utilize restaurants and local businesses for a lot of our trainings and things like that, where we have to provide a meal. Any way possible that we can support somebody local, we do that. Local contractors are always in and out of our building. We do as much as we can locally as possible, because we want to help the economy, even though we are receiving federal and state money. Although, just for example, today I had somebody who came to us. They're 2 months behind on their property taxes. And we actually have a fund through a local church that we are going to help them pay their property taxes. So although we as an organization are not taxpayers, we do help the customers and the people, actually over 3,000 individuals just in Logan County. We do support them on an annual basis and support them as taxpayers.
Alderwoman Rawls.
Since I am the only one on the council that sits on the Economic Development Board, I want to thank Kevin for what he said, because he basically said things that I would have included in what I wanted to say. We do have to look at our grant, and John and Tracy and Chuck are all on that board also. But I think that what we need to do is look at what was laid out before, because this is about the second incidence that we've had this year, that we questioned whether that fell within the guidelines that we had established as far as economic development, which is basically giving to businesses that make money, that bring other businesses into town, we hope, and more people into the town to shop there. So if we feel that this is important, which we do, please don't misunderstand that we don't think that what you do out there is not one of the most important things in the community. It is. So I will be abstaining tonight because I think part of it lies within the way our structure is within that grant, and that maybe we need to look at more thoroughly to define more specifically some of these requests that we've looked at.
Absolutely. And being a grant writer, I don't disagree with that at all. I will say that I did go back and review the application. It does not state anywhere in the application that nonprofits cannot apply. And if it was stated in there, I would have not applied. I would have not wasted the council's time as well as my own. And so I do feel like if you're going to move forward, as a grant writer, I would appreciate there being some better specifications in there. However, I would like to say that I don't know that our application should be denied or looked differently upon before those changes are made, because they were not in the application when I applied for it.
Well, I think that that is very important because we do need to make sure that we look at these things. You know, when you look at your organization being able to bring in $12 million through government money, I know a business owner does not have that. You know, they could go out and apply for loans or for grants, but there aren't that many grants available for small businesses. And so they don't have that outlet. About the only outlet they have is with the city of Lincoln. And
Yeah.
so we do need to look at that, and thank you for making sure that you reinforce that for us.
Absolutely. And I do think although small businesses maybe have a little bit less of opportunity, I would like to think a lot of their opportunities are a little bit less restrictive than ours. So,
Well, some of them aren't, though. I kind of got looking into that after
Yeah.
meeting last week, and some of them just are hard to maneuver through.
absolutely. Yes.
Alderman Parrott.
Just one last question. So then the company that you have coming in to do the roof repair, they're from Lincoln?
They are not. So the way that this process had to go, we opened it as an open bid. We are required to do that, and we are also required to have a minimum of 3 bids to come in for any job that we do over a certain amount. And so we do publicize that it is open. And so the bids that we receive, it depends on who applies for that bid. Unfortunately, we did not have a local roofer that did apply. I actually have the organization or the company that we went with is Energy Resource Roofing. They're out of Chillicothe. And that was the $90,000 bid. And then we also had a bid from Bolash Roofing, which was $230,000. I'm unsure of where they're located. And then Williams Roofing, which was $280,000. So they were significantly higher. And unfortunately, just something at this time that we as an organization, regardless of your support, can't afford. So, yeah.
Alderman Bateman.
Seeing Mr. Parrott's eyebrows raised, I'm kind of confused. In your first comments, you said that the way your organization is funded and operates, it doesn't allow for capital improvements. But then you just stated that, I don't remember how you said it, but my recollection is our process or the way we operate, it doesn't allow us to do this. And then you went out of town for bids. If your process doesn't allow you to do it, could you have not wrote the request when you went out for bid that only local contractors? It seems like you're contradicting yourself, that the way your government entity runs, you're not allowed to make capital improvements, but then you mentioned that the way you operate, you weren't allowed to go out for bids certain ways to where you could get local contractors.
That's actually not what I said. Is what I meant was that we have to go out for bid for projects. And typically when you do a bidded project, businesses have to submit their bid or bid proposal. So if a local company does not submit a bid for proposal, they cannot be considered for the job. So, and in this case, we did not have any local companies that did roofing actually submit a bid for this project, or that would have been under consideration. But unfortunately, that was not the case.
Any other questions for Ms. Titus? Okay. Thank you for coming and speaking with us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. And I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thanks. Okay, moving on, we'll start with the consent agenda this evening. It consists of 6A, payment of bills, and 6B, approval of minutes, August 27th, 2024, Committee of the Whole meeting, September 3rd, 2024, regular City Council meeting, September 10th, 2024, Committee of the Whole meeting, September 16th, 2024, regular City Council meeting, and September 24th, 2024, Committee of the Whole meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
Alderman Eimer made the motion, Alderwoman O'Donohue second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mrs. McCullen?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Okay, next item up is item 7A, ordinance creating section 1-6-10 of the Lincoln City Code.
I make a motion to table this.
Second.
Okay, Alderman Eimer made the motion to table, Alderman Downs second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yeah.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Ms. McCullen?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Okay, item number 7A has been tabled. Moving on to item 7B, resolution of the City of Lincoln adopting civility pledge.
I make a motion to table this.
Second.
Alderman Eimer made a motion to table, Alderman Downs second. Discussion? Roll call, please. Oh, Alderman Parrott.
Yeah, we've had a civility pledge before, right?
We have.
And so is it much? I'd have to compare the two. Did we vote on this before too?
We did not. That was something that came from the IML. That was just simply a recommendation. If the council person so desired, they could sign it. Some of you have left them on your desk, but I believe that the city attorney, this is something he recommended. Is it? And I'm assuming it came from IML as well.
It did, yes. So it's just another avenue for the council that was being proffered before you.
So if it gets passed, just the question of if someone doesn't sign it, what does that mean?
I think by the idea of passing it is that the council as a whole is adopting the civility pledge. So
It doesn't answer my question.
okay, if somebody doesn't sign, then they don't. There's the individual civility pledge. If someone doesn't sign, then they don't sign. You can't force a hand, to sign.
Right.
It. Yeah.
No, I'm just asking. What's the difference between what we did here rather than putting it into?
It's kind of like more of just an official document that would go within the resolutions of the city, of the city council. That way, it's something written out for something that was voted upon, as opposed to a civility pledge that's just in the nether someplace. You just pulled one up there.
Sure.
That's still laying on a desk. So
Right. Okay. No, that's it. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call to table this item.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
No.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mrs. McCullen?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
We can table it. Yes.
Okay, item 7B has been tabled as well. Moving on to item 8A, approval of bid from PH Broughton and Son for resurfacing project in an amount not to exceed $430,000 from MFT Fund, Rebuild Illinois money. Is there a motion to approve?
I got some questions.
After we make a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderwoman McClellan made the motion. Alderman Downs second. Mr. Eimer, discussion?
When is this work supposed to start?
Mr. Landers?
Once the bid's approved, then we'll have a pre-construction meeting and set those dates.
So when is it supposed to start?
We don't have a start date yet.
Well, can somebody explain why we didn't do this earlier in the year? I mean, I guess that's my next question.
Yes, I can. So as Mr. Rimmer explained at the last meeting, we started this project, working on these projects last September. So we've been working on them early last fall up until now. With the Rebuild Illinois project, our first initial target was Tremont Street. After they worked through that process, we ran into issues that we didn't realize were there because of the historic property, and it just wasn't a good fit for that Rebuild Illinois money because of the delays it would take to go through all the approvals for IDOT. So we had to realign and pull up more targets and realign the projects again. So once that was done, and then we have to go back to IDOT, and yet again there was more delays. So we started this working on these projects plenty early enough, but the unexpected delays that we've ran into is what's caused it to go so late in the season.
My next question is, if we approve this to be done, can this project be put off till spring till we have the nicer weather then?
We wouldn't want to do that.
That?
Because we can get started and do a lot of this before the end of the construction season.
Don't you think we're getting at the end of the construction season?
No.
Well, I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree.
IDOT has a book of standards that tells you what you do, what temperatures, what those deadlines and dates are.
This work's gonna be going clear into November, correct?
Even December, the concrete work can
So what
go.
exactly are we doing? Was it just
This is mill and overlay, which requires concrete work. Because when you mill and overlay an intersection, you go through the crosswalk, we have to make those crosswalks ADA compliant. So that work has to be done before the overlays can be done, the asphalt work.
So is there gonna be seal coating involved?
No, there's no seal coat involved in this at all. It's all mill and overlay project. It's all asphalt work. And as long as the asphalt plants are open, there's no issue with doing it. And if it gets to the point where we can't do asphalt because of the temperatures or the plants close down, then it'll be delayed until next spring.
Okay. Did you say it was concrete work also?
Yes.
On curbs and,
Ramps, some curb work, but mainly the ramps. When you go through an intersection, let's just imagine that you go through a crosswalk. So if those crosswalks, those sidewalk ramps at those corners aren't ADA compliant, it's a standard that when you do that, those have to be brought into ADA compliances as far as your slopes, cross slopes and things like that. So that work has to take place first before you can do any of the resurfacing.
so if the weather does turn bad, then what we do, put it off till spring then, is that?
Yes, we get as much done. I mean, this conversation took place before any of this with the contractors. I know at least one contractor asked the question, as far as the finish dates and things like that. So our expectation that was expressed to them is at least we can get started on the concrete work, which that could go into December and January. The mild winters that we've been having, we've done concrete work late in the year and even into the first of the year. So
Yeah, it's not probably advisable, but yeah, you can do it.
we have not had any issues. I know there was some statements made that, about failures and failures of projects or the quality of the work. In the 10 years that I've been here, there has never been a failure related to weather in any of our projects, whether it be oil chip, concrete, asphalt. Nothing is ever, we've never had a failure that was brought to my attention or that I'm aware of.
Alderman Parrott?
So who decides that the temperature is not right for that? Is that the asphalt company that they're not going to let it go out, or is that
Between those standards, so let's just say for oil and chip, which last year we started our oil and chip project in September 1st. So we had some unusually cold temperatures in a couple days during that project. So basically, I believe, and Shane might correct me, but I think it has to be 40 degrees and rising to do oil and chip. There was a couple of those days where it didn't meet those standards, so we had to delay until we had the appropriate weather to move forward.
Right.
So it got delayed a couple days, and then went on and finished the project.
Like I remember Halloween last year, it was probably below 40, I would think.
Yeah, this was only a couple days during that project. That project was probably 2 or 3 weeks long.
Okay,
You know, but asphalt's a different animal than other than oil and chip. So,
sure.
and those asphalt companies, between the construction engineer on the project and the asphalt companies, I mean, they're professionals. They know these standards as well as anybody. So between the two, that's where it'll be regulated, and with myself.
Thank you.
Alderman Heimer.
Did you say it's been since last September, so we're at 13 months of trying to get this approved? Is that correct?
We started working on these projects last September. So we've been working on these since the last year's project.
Is there, moving forward in the future, is there any way to get some of this sped up to where we're in the heart of summer and the better weather? Or
Well, and that's what we've been trying to do. If we wouldn't have ran into the delays that we had, we would have been doing this probably in May, June, or July. But with those delays, it's causing us issues. Those unforeseen delays that we had with IDOT and the Rebuild Illinois money.
Shane.
Yeah, so there's been several things that have been asked. I think, thank you, Alderman Parrott, for some of
Shane,
those
can you
questions.
you sure you pull there you go. Thank you.
So as far as the requirements of the project, they'll fall under state DOT, IDOT requirements. The best way to describe that is DOT is very good at protecting their own interest, so we'll follow those same standards. Everything that will be subject to Rebuild Illinois or MFT has to hit the letter of the law on that. The locally funded stuff, we could have some wiggle room, but there's usually not a reason to do that outside of extenuating circumstances. So when push comes to shove with a contractor, the best hammer you have is payment. You say, if you're out of spec, if you proceed, we're not paying you for it. That usually gets their attention, right? So we've got the hammer there with that. As far as, I think, Councilman Eimer, you asked about when they're gonna get started. If the projects get approved today, the locally funded projects, I've already let PH Broughton know. I already have the contract to them, the contract bond, all that information. As soon as they turn that around, pending a vote, I could see that the contract being executed this week on that. Now, with the Rebuild Illinois, MFT, that'll have to go back to IDOT, which is about a 2-week turnaround on that. But they would at least be allowed to get started on the locally funded stuff. I did talk to Tommy Cecil with PH Broughton, and I brought him up to speed on some of the council's concern about the time of the year, and he assured me that they would much rather hold off on doing it instead of doing it wrong. He knows that part of this is going to push into the spring, so it's that when do they basically roll up shop for the season and push everything to next season? That's all weather dependent. As far as when is the best time to bid, the two low bids that we had this year represent, on the rebuild, we were 24% below our estimate, and the locally funded was just under 29% below our estimate. The unit prices that we used for those estimates were based out of first quarter, second quarter prices from 2024. So these third quarter prices that we got were advantageous to the city. So much so that we need to actually look at additional targets to expend the rest of the MFT funds, and I'm working with Walt on that. So I asked again, Tommy Cecil, project manager with Broughton, when is the best time to bid? When is the best time for you guys to get the best bids? He said October, November, December, because they want to have enough work to finish out their year, keep their guys working as long as possible, but they also want to have plenty of backlog work ready to go as soon as the weather breaks in the spring. I spoke with Kyle what's his name, Moody
Yes, I believe so.
with Opperman Construction. They're doing your sidewalk program. He kind of reiterated those dates, and he said he would even add January into that as well, as far as getting the most competitive bids for the city. As far as how we move forward with our timing, the main thing that we have to have in order, and this is anytime we go to use the MFT funds, is to make sure that when the resolution is passed, that those funds are expended in the same fiscal year. So when the fiscal year starts May 1, we have to juggle that a little bit. But other than that, all I can say is, I'll continue to work with Walt on moving projects along.
Mr. Landers.
Yes, so just to give you a little back history, and we've had this discussion up here before. So, working with Mr. Conzo, we started a engineering line in our capital projects fund back in 22, 23. That was the first year that we had that engineering line in our budget. And the purpose of that was to make sure that we have the money for the construction engineering for the current year's project. And then we also budget so we have the money so we can start design on the following year's project. And we were in line to do that. But again, the delays that cost us the time with the Rebuild Illinois money and the project, the first project we chose, not working out. And we had to go into that so far before we knew that. And then once we figured that out, then we had to replan, look at it again, and then develop another project. And then we also had the opportunity to let the public road or the general fund project, we could have let it earlier. But we had this discussion between us, by keeping those two projects together, I believe it definitely gave us better prices. So, that's just kind of the history of how we got to where we are and where we're trying to be.
So I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again. We have a healthy budget in this city. Personally, I would like to see Shane Walton and get with Mr. Conzo, and surely we can match the money we're spending this year, because we do have a healthy budget. We don't see the house burning down, so I would suggest you personally, since it is October already, start working on the projects for 2026 already with a number that he could come within 2 or 3% of what to spend. So that way we are getting the best bids. I would love to sit here every single year saying we got to find additional streets to fix because this is what we budgeted, this is what it came out as. So as long as we keep that moving, I feel safe and confident in Mr. Conzo's ability, not all the time, but most of the time, to come up with a number that is accurate so you guys can move forward instead of waiting till we vote on a budget May 1 and then we're all scrambling. It shouldn't take much effort to get to the point where this council is always talking about next year's streets instead of this year's streets. We should always be a year ahead in advance on what we're doing. That's just my thoughts. I don't know what the rest of the council feels, but I feel confident that we should be able to get there.
Mr.
Did
Landers,
you
do you
say
have a
2026 or 2025? Okay,
so you want us to plan in 24 for the roads we're gonna do in 26? Right. Right.
Okay.
Well, calendar year or fiscal year, I mean, yeah.
Correct. Mr. Landers, did you have a response to Mr. Bateman?
Yeah, so basically that's what we did. We knew going into budgets how much money we needed. So we were already aware of where our estimates were, and we knew what we needed to have in our budget, and basically we were able to do what we needed to do as far as funding. So we basically did that same thing already. For next year's, the upcoming projects, hopefully we're letting Tremont Street sometime in the spring. So we already have our projects set for probably the next 2 years. Other than hopefully we can put together maybe a couple small oil and chip projects going forward and using MFT money for those, because Tremont Street's going to take up a majority of our capital project fund. And that's probably, we're assuming right now, and it's just an assumption, that it's going to be a 2-year project.
Alderman
So-
Parrott?
Yeah, I was in the same thought as Kevin, as far as the planning for next projects, and to, I think, his point, if we had additional funds, do we have a plan for the potential of additional roads, perhaps?
So normally when I put together targets, I usually go a whole hog with them. So we have additional targets. I know I'm probably going over budget, what we can afford. So just like our sidewalk project, we had good bids. So we went back to the target list that I provided, and then we start adding those targets back in so we can get closer to the budget number.
Thank you.
So I got a follow-up question. Do you believe that had we not encountered the IDOT delays because of Tremont, that we would be starting earlier?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I would assume we probably would have got started at least by July. I don't know if Shane agrees with me.
Yeah, I know the locally funded stuff was ready by July.
Yeah. So we would have been going then if we had not had those delays, unforeseen too.
So
delays.
the reason I ask that is just for everybody's benefit, is because if we do our part and we start planning early, we have to understand that there's other things out of our control that could impact us.
And normally in the past, we have not used MFT money. Usually we use our general fund capital projects money, which again gives us some more room to move and wiggle around and avoid some of those delays. The Rebuild Illinois money, our first project was Heitman Drive. We got through it, got it done. Then we went through the transition and engineers, so that delayed us a little bit. And then we have to have that money, what we have left, expended by July, and that Rebuild Illinois money. So that's why we're scrambling a little bit, trying to get this done. And then, like Mr. Rimmer said, we're going to be bringing additional targets forward soon to use up the rest of that funding.
Right. Any other questions regarding this topic? Okay. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer? Yes. Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mrs. McClellan?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Okay, next item is item 8B, approval of bid from PH Broughton and Son for resurfacing project in an amount not to exceed $670,000 from the Capital Project Fund.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Parrott made the motion. Alderwoman O'Donoghue second. Discussion? Alderman Eimer.
Can you walk in and give a little detail what's going on with this project then? As far as, you know,
It's the same type of project as the Rebuild Illinois and the MFT funds. Mill and overlay, same thing.
just more locations? Is that
Just, yes, just additional targets, yep.
Okay, further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mrs. McCullen?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Next item up is item 10A, approval of request from the Land of Lincoln CEO program for a 3-year renewal of the city's annual donation of $1,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alderman Downs made the motion. Alderwoman O'Donoghue second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mrs. McCullen?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Next item is item 10B, approval of the design and implementation of a new city website by Print Digital LLC in an amount not to exceed $16,275 with a monthly hosting management fee in the amount of $125 per month.
Move to approve.
Second. Alderman Bateman made the motion. Alderman Sanders second. Discussion? Ms. Rolfs?
Are we doing this every year? Or is this for a length of time?
The $16,700 or $275 is a one-time fee, and then the monthly hosting fee of $125 will continue on until the council desires to change that.
So will that be brought up every year? Or we just,
We can bring it up every year.
Won't it just be a line item in the budget, like other monthly
We will budget for it, yes.
administrative fees?
Kale, would you like to speak?
If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
How did you, well, let me back up. Going to Miss Rolf's question, so there are contracts that we will renew every year, or we'll readdress those. Are you comfortable coming back and readdressing the hosting maintenance fee annually with us?
Yeah, that's no problem. Typically what we do is we're building out the site and then it's month to month from there. I mean, if you guys are spending $16,000 on a website, I'd hope that you don't leave. It's kind of a waste of money. So that 125 would just be a month to month. If anybody ever did want to cancel, it's just a 30-day notice. And then we go in and turn the site off. But like we had discussed before, in the future, 5-10 years later down the road, if you guys want to do a redesign, we will work with you guys. It's not going to be a massive jump of we're going to go in and revamp the whole thing and have
Alderman
a big
Bateman.
price.
So to make it simple, this is a $125 a month annual accruing with no expiration date until there's changes to be made at the website, and we will build that
Correct.
into the budget under other administrative fees.
Yeah, 125 a month is what that is.
What I would recommend, and I don't believe I've seen it, is I know we got a bid when we went through this process, but I haven't seen an actual contract. And I would recommend
We can
that
send that over.
we do a contract between us and Print Digital, just to make sure that we're operating moving forward on the same understanding.
Nope, completely agree. We have one drafted up. I can send it over.
But I'm just saying it will automatically renew. We've got other contracts like that just,
If the council so desires.
I'm okay with that. 30-day out clause, and it's built into the budget.
Yep. Okay, so if you send that over to Miss Bateman, she'll get it to the city attorney and just make sure we work through that contract. Any other questions for Kale?
Be a monthly bill, or are we gonna, while we're discussing it, is this gonna, how would you like this quarterly?
We can do either. Typically, clients will do monthly with a card on file and it just auto charges it. Or if you guys wanted to do one,
Chuck
payment a
doesn't
year.
card.
The
anything.
treasurer's
I'm telling you
anti-plastic.
right now, it will be paper.
that is fine too. That's fine too.
Any discount for, like, we pay once a year?
With this, no, because we already gave a pretty hefty discount on the monthly there.
So, I mean, technically, we could pay annually.
Yeah, if
or
you wanted to.
Every
Yeah.
6 months. We'll let you work that out with the clerk.
Okay.
These are things that we've done with other companies and contracts. Mr. Hoblet?
If you guys are going to build in a 30-day out clause, I'd recommend paying monthly because you don't want to overpay in the event that you want to get out of the contract. So
That's
Ms. Bateman?
So the $125 a month doesn't start till after the website is totally finished?
So typically what we do is it starts when the site is being built, because then we're publishing it on a subdomain, and then you can everybody can go in, they'll have access to that specific subdomain, and it is being hosted. It's just on a different domain. It won't be on the actual Lincoln one. if we needed to, we could put it on a preview one. It just won't show everything like it would.
Alderman Parrott?
What's your anticipated finish date of the site?
I think on there, I think it was like 5 months of what we estimated on that. Yeah.
6 months, something like
Well, to better understand it, so most companies do it this way. They actually have to lease space with a company, and I believe this is AWS.
Yep.
So they have to lease space with Amazon. We're leasing the space. They're just building it for us. And so there's a cost to them for leasing that space. And if I misspoke, Kale,
No, that's pretty accurate.
I don't, off the top of my head, see the timeline.
I'm pretty sure in my notes it was five.
I think that's, yeah. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Discussion? Okay. Thanks, Kale.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mrs. McClellan?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Abstain?
Mrs. O'Donohue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Okay. Next item is 10C, approval of economic development grant to Community Action Partnership of Central Illinois for roof replacement in an amount not to exceed $7,500.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Alderman Downs made the motion. Alderwoman O'Donohue second. Discussion? Alderman Bateman.
So like I said, I'm going to vote yes for this, but I would like, before any other government entities or non-for-profits come forward, I would like to put a pause on any grants for a non-for-profit until we work out some kind of details. Because
second
I'll
that.
tell you straight up what one citizen told me. I understand they do a lot of work, good work, but it's like taking money out of my left pocket and putting it in my right pocket.
Alderman Parrott.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. I would like to not pass out any applications until, can they get the applications online or do they have to come to your office, Peggy?
They're on the website.
Can we unhyperlink that until we can, because people can keep applying until they don't have access to the application until we get this
We
thing
can
changed.
suspend the application process until the committee has had an opportunity to speak about it and bring a proposal forward to the council for direction. Mr. Hoblet.
Please keep in mind that, again, the ultimate authority rests upon you guys for approval. So if you don't like it, you don't like it. I believe there should be language in the application that we reserve the right to deny it for any reason whatsoever. So just to FYI, if you're concerned about that. So
Yeah, I think it goes back to what was discussed earlier, though, and Ms. Titus mentioned it. We don't want to waste people's time. So if we don't believe that it's going to meet the criteria that the council desires, then let's get that document updated so that they know what they can and cannot be eligible to receive. Mr. Bateman and then Mr. Conzo.
And I appreciate Mr. Hoblet's opinion, but what Mr. Welch just said is exactly what I'm getting at. I don't want 20 non-for-profits to start filling out applications overnight, and then the committee has to muddle through them and sit in committee and say, well, we really don't have any rules, now we got to bring it to the council. We need to suspend or modify or put it on the next agenda that we take a vote to suspend non-for-profit applications, unless someone can think of something added to non-for-profit, so that we're not handing out taxpayer dollars to entities that receive taxpayer money.
Mr. Conzo and then Ms. Rolfs.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things here. When we're talking about, you've kind of mixed government agencies agencies that get support from the government with non-for-profit, those aren't necessarily the same thing. There's a lot of not-for-profit organizations that don't get government money or don't get, get very little government money. So there's kind of a distinction there. And the other thing, having been on this committee since it was implemented some time ago, we were told that the idea with this was not to make these decisions based on what was in the building, but based on preserving the building, because the building, in theory, would continue to be there, whether or not or we would hope would continue to be there, whether or not the occupants of it were still there. And this came up when we went through that whole discussion about the businesses involved in the marijuana trade, and some of us were not delighted to be giving money to organizations or to companies that used it for that purpose. And we were told, well, we're really not giving it to them for the purpose of furthering that type of business. We're doing it to preserve the building. So they may be there a year, there 2 years or 5 years, and somebody else will be in that building. The whole idea was that we wanted to preserve the building. So I think going forward, as we look at more of these, if that is indeed the standard that we're using, that we should be more mindful of that, and less on whether we like the fact that it's a not-for-profit or it's what?
It should be a tax-generating entity.
Well,
Capsule does not generate tax dollars.
that can be construed a number of different ways. I suppose if they train people to be able to go out and get a job, then those people, when they get a job, will be paying taxes. So there's a number of different ways to look at that too.
Well,
Ms. Ross?
that what you just said, Mr. Conzo, I have never heard before, and I've been on the commission for a while, that we looked at the historic preservation aspect. We do, if it's a historic building, but I have never considered that when I was looking at whether or not we should give them money, that was going to be for preserving the building. If there's no business to go in the building, then, the building kind of stands empty. So I think it is something the commission needs to really look at thoroughly. We need to talk about these things, decide what was originally intended, whether that needs to be adjusted to a different understanding. But I do think I totally agree with Mr. Baseman. I think we need to look at this. I'd hate to, we're looking at what? Didn't we suspend the applications in March?
Yeah, we made a decision on the commission to suspend them in March, and that had to do with the applications that would roll into the new fiscal year. It was to help alleviate some of that. I don't want to say confusion, but perhaps, stress on the process. Yeah. Confusion for the applicants, et cetera.
So we've got basically October, November, December, January, February, right? Yet that we could still get applications for this year. So during that time, I think we need to take into consideration at our meetings discussing what Mr. Bateman has said. So that when we start out the next year, we've got it in place.
Yeah. Mr. Parrott?
Yeah, I think we still need to get something in place, and I don't know what it would look like exactly, but I mean there would be nothing against, and I'm all for schools here in town, public entities, and or churches. I'm pro-church, or places of worship that would want to do a repair just like this, and what would keep us from saying no.
So going back to the beginning of the program, for those of us that have been around from the beginning, it is for commercial properties only. So I think that would eliminate some of those possibilities. And the purpose was it is technically a structural improvement program. So it is to look at commercial properties, provide assistance with structural improvements with the intention of getting businesses, et cetera, in those buildings that could then help spur the economy.
Yeah, that's to my point. I mean, I think churches do the same thing exactly, almost like what Capsule does. I mean, they help. That in fact, she even mentioned, I think, where some church donates some money to help some of these people, that are coming there for their need or for their help.
Is a church a commercial property?
No, but
So we need to get some clarification on this, because this particular topic has raised additional questions. The commission had already dealt with another topic not too long ago regarding a different property, which I'm not going to open up that discussion about tonight. And there was a debate about whether they actually have a direct or indirect impact on the local economy. And so to help the commission, be able to make better decisions, to help the applicants know what they can and cannot get, and to help those of you on the council actually vote with some confidence in the program itself, I do think we need to go back and have a commission discussion. Now, the question is, and I don't know this, do we need to take a vote to suspend, or can we just suspend that program temporarily just by decision until this gets brought back to the council?
Suspend as in suspend we're not accepting any more applications?
Correct.
Oh, I would think it's a discretion of the committee. There's nothing saying we do this. We have no obligation. This is the grant program that you guys are doing, pretty much out of the kindness of your heart, to help these businesses. You're under no legal obligation to provide it, or even to continue funding it once it's there.
Okay.
So, yes, you can suspend it, but like you're saying, for the people who are out there who want to submit applications, I recommend conveying something to that extent, so you're not getting additional applications.
Okay. Can we?
Because we do have, don't we have some language in there that talks about we have the right to approve?
We do have the right to approve, but I don't want somebody sitting in that desk a month or two from now just saying exactly what Ms. Titus said, was that I looked at it, everything said that I was eligible, but now you're telling me we're not. So I think, to be fair to our applicants, let's see if we can expedite that, put it on the next agenda for the commission. Can you make a note that we bring that up with Ms. Metelko? Here in a couple weeks. Yeah. Yeah. So that we can make an agenda item for that. Okay. Okay, now I've missed some hands. Let's start with Ms. McClellan, and then Mr. Bateman and Mr. Conzo. Sorry.
I don't know I can't remember if commercial property is in the original language I cannot remember if that's in there. But if it is, then, that really clarifies a lot about what we really meant to say, I believe, when we said that, when we started out. Real estate that is used for business activities. Commercial property usually refers to buildings and houses and house businesses, but can also refer to land, but it's to generate profit. And so that if you're going to put commercial in there, you're already narrowing, what you really, if that's in there, you've already narrowed what you really mean for quite a bit.
Generate profit.
So
I think at the time it was intended to say building, perhaps the language doesn't specify this, but I think the intention was to say buildings that are zoned commercial. I think that's where we were at on that, but we can clarify. Yeah, Ms. McClellan, any further comment? Mr. Bateman?
Well, I'm still going to vote yes, because that statement right there, we should be voting no, because it's non-for-profit.
Yep.
So we've already set precedent. I'll still vote yes, but that statement she just made, if we went by our own standards, it generates profit. Capsule's a non-for-profit. I don't know who's all on that committee, but one of the things you could look at is, does the property generate sales tax? That would be something that could be added in there. But that language right there, we should all be voting no. So just food for thought. We have to look at the details when we're looking and narrowing it down on an application.
Mr. Conzo?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things, just in response to Alderman Rolfe's comment about the building and the historic preservation of it. Going back to what I said originally, I wasn't talking about just historic preservation of the building, but preserving the buildings so that they're usable, which is, could include in historic preservation, but in some cases it wouldn't, but you still don't want commercial buildings to deteriorate. It's structural, but it may or may not be historic preservations, if that makes sense. And the other thing, Alderman Bateman, I think you talked about the Lincoln Women's Club. My recollection of that was that was a facade grant, not an economic development grant, and that has different parameters, different guidelines. Or did we
Thought
do
it
both?
was the framing of a window.
Yeah,
The
and
metal frame of a window came under structural.
Well, the whole, I wasn't on council when that was approved, I don't believe it.
It's been a
I think that
while
was
ago.
before my time, but the whole window was taken and re-leaded because they were loose. So it was repair of the whole window as well as making sure that the structure that it was in was, yeah.
So I pulled up the website and it says, the City of Lincoln Economic Development Grant Program offers several forms of business assistance and incentives. This assistance allows property owners to make improvements to private infrastructures and economic quality of life issues for the City of Lincoln. A property must be zoned commercial to be eligible for funding assistance. The expenditure of grant fund revenue is limited each year. And then sprinkled throughout the next couple paragraphs, it mentions economic quality of life issues. It doesn't mention anything about you must generate sales tax. Capsule, in my opinion, and I don't have a vote in the matter, so it's up to those of you, but do they not create economic quality of life issues for the city of Lincoln? For the 3,000 people in our city that they support?
I looked that up. I went on to find out what economic quality of life meant. And when I looked at it, it didn't seem to match what we were talking about. It was just that, you have a community that has good income and, that kind of thing, but not necessarily that this grant meant you're going to have economic quality of life.
Yeah. Alderman Downs? I understand. Yeah.
Thank you
Right
for reading and clarifying that segment that you just spoke about there, Mayor. That helps. I mean, I kind of sat silent this whole meeting so far, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I'm happy to vote yes on this grant for Capsule. I think that the economic quality of life that they give is immeasurable here in this community, as well as other businesses, non-for-profits in Lincoln. I just kind of looked up some other non-for-profits that would be similar, like the food bank. If they came here and needed some assistance, I'd be happy. That's again, it's an economic quality of life. If there ever would be a non-for-profit that came forward and didn't meet that criteria, then I think we would just vote no. We don't have to vote yes. So, I mean, I don't think we need to make any changes to the ordinance. I'm happy with the way it is now, and I'm happy to vote yes on this Capsule issue.
Ms. McClellan?
Again, I think if you were going to start doing not-for-profits and government funded, then
Charities.
you'd have to take out the
They
commercial.
fall under
Probably,
charity.
you'd have to. If it's commercial, it seems to me there's some kind of trade exchange or something like that, and so you'd have to kind of look to the definition of that, and that would, to me, that would exclude. If you're gonna let everybody in, which I don't care, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but the language commercial probably would not work with that. So that would have to be looked at to change if you're gonna like broaden the criteria, so.
I still say that if I go back to when this originally started, my perception from what I heard, because I wasn't on the commission, but we were looking at trying to get more businesses downtown. We were trying to encourage people to come in and to occupy some of the buildings that were there. We would help them to do, whether it was facade grants or whatever, to get their building to where it was more delightful to go to. And then all of a sudden we're getting away. And when you look at not-for-profits, a lot of not-for-profits there are there for the societal thing, not necessarily for the economic thing, but to help your society within your community come together to do things that are good for the people, but they don't have the income that can help us grow. If you don't have your businesses, you don't have the money to help us grow as a community and get more businesses in. So
I would ask you a question, and we can leave it at that, and you don't have to answer. But you and I both sat on an organization called Main Street Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe Main Street Lincoln had an economic impact to our communities and businesses?
only from the perspective of the businesses they tried to help encourage and bring more people to, because that job was to get more people to come into the stores. So there was an economic part there.
And I think that's kind of where my mind goes sometimes, is sometimes it's not a direct impact, like I'm not selling you a pen, thank you for the dollar. It's the indirect impact that it has on our community. And because Main Street Lincoln did do a lot to help businesses, and they helped them succeed. We helped identify space for people to rent. So perhaps it's looking more at the types of organizations rather than just ruling out non-for-profits altogether, but we can talk about it as a commission. Okay. All right, any further discussion? Okay, Ms. Rolfs.
I do have a question. Peggy, when we took the vote on the approval for section 1610, who made that motion?
Alderman Eimer.
What?
Alderman Eimer.
Sam second.
Did he make the motion to approve?
He made a motion to table.
Okay, well, the table is not supposed to come until after the motion has been made, the second has been made. Then that's when you put in, I move to lay this on the table. So the process there wasn't according to Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay,
I just wanted to bring that.
we can go back to those items and address that properly. Okay, can we address 10C first? Okay, any further discussion on item 10C? Roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Abstain.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Ms. McClellan?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Abstain.
Okay. To Ms. Rawls' point, I'd like to go back to item 7A, ordinance creating section 1-6-10 of the Lincoln City Code. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Alderman Bateman made the motion to approve. Alderman Sanders, second. Discussion?
That's when he comes in
Yes.
I make a motion to table this.
to lay this on the table.
Second.
Alderman Eimer made a motion to table the item. Alderman Downs, second the motion to table. Further discussion on tabling the item? Roll call, please. It's
It's tabled.
so we need to do a motion to table the item, then we'll do a motion on 7A. Well, do we even need to come back and do a motion on 7A once it's tabled? Okay. Roll
Okay.
call on 7A, please.
We're tabling it.
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mrs. McClellan?
Yes.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to item 7B. Resolution of the City of Lincoln adopting the civility pledge. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Parrott made the motion. Alderman Bateman, second. Discussion?
I make a motion to table this item.
I second.
Alderman Eimer made a motion to table the item. Alderman Downs made he second to table the item. Further discussion? Roll call to table 7B, please.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Donoghue?
Yes.
Mr. Eimer?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
No.
Mr. Sanders?
No.
Mrs. McCullen?
No.
Mr. Parrott?
Yes.
Okay. Any further clarification or discussion? Okay, moving down to announcements. I've got a few. First, please don't forget that the Touch a Truck event, which the council approved, is this Saturday, October 12th from 9 to 1 at Scully Park. So if you are free and able, I'm sure they'd love to have you at the event. And thanks to your participating too, Chief, correct? And the police department as well? Yes, sir. Okay. Mr. Landers, does your department have vehicles in there?
At this point, no.
Okay. Thanks to your departments for participating. Next is, you might have seen, Ms. Matoko sent an email to everybody. We're going to do another movie night. There were people that felt that there's still enough season to do that. And so we are going to do another movie night in the 8th Street lot, which is where the old hospital was. And it's going to be October 18th at 6 p.m. And the movie is going to be Hocus Pocus. And we partnered with the Park District again on this, as well as Brian Clark is helping sponsor that event as well for us. Mr. Bateman and then Ms. McClellan.
I want to thank the people who chose the movie Hocus Pocus. I think it's very important culturally because I have an 8-year-old granddaughter that was just infatuated with Hocus Pocus 2 and didn't realize there was a Hocus Pocus 1. And after I convinced her to watch it with me, she realized why the cat talks. So it is very important to go back in time to figure out how a modern movie is made.
Ms. McClellan.
Well, that was very interesting. I wondered about lights. It's going to be dark really early. I wondered, were we going to try to, I know that there are street lights, but.
So what we did the last time was we worked through the fire department, and then Lincoln Rural, they have a light for the MABUS program, and they brought it out to the lot. And so we can turn that light on before and after the movie for safety reasons for people to get in and out of the lot.
So plenty of light for the traffic to see. Okay,
Yep.
Wonderful.
It
Thank
will
you.
be.
Weather related, right?
Yep, weather permitting. If it's raining.
Weather permitting.
Yeah, no, weather related. Yeah. So everything's contingent upon the weather. So, and what we know at the time is there was still some items from the previous event, chips, cookies, drinks, stuff like that. We're going to bring that out, and those will be free to those who want them. And then I think some of that was donated by the Park District. And then also there will be the food truck that was there before. It is, I can't remember the name of it, Tim Brady and some of their partners. They have the truck that was there, and then the barbecue that was next door. Steve, you were there, and Peggy and Kevin were as well. So more fun for the community. And thanks to Ms. Metalco for pulling all that together. Okay, the next thing, it's really a request for the council, but we've learned this week that on October 29th, the Central Illinois Veterans Commission will be dedicating 2 new homes and giving the keys to those 2 recipients, those veterans. And these are the houses in Atlanta. They'll be doing that event at 5:30. And because our meeting starts at 6, the request is there a concern with the council if we start at 6:30 to allow those individuals time to attend and participate in that? Mr. Bateman.
We've attended every one of those dedications. I personally, I think you need to move it to 7 because sometimes they go long and it's a 10-minute drive from Atlanta. You know, especially if you get somebody long-winded on the dedication. It may start at 6, but it may not be over till 6:30. You've been to all of them, so, you know.
I'm a member of that board.
You're there half an hour or longer.
Well, I wanted to ask for the minimum time, but if you're willing to be more flexible.
I suggest 7 also.
That or move the whole meeting one night before or after.
Oh, I don't think we need to move it just for that. Okay, so is everybody okay with 7 o'clock on the 29th? Okay. It is a committee of the whole. Yep. Okay, Ms. Bateman will make that adjustment, and then we will update the calendar invites for everybody.
Are they dedicating both houses? There's
Yes.
somebody for both houses?
Yes, we have a recipient for both houses. Yep. Okay, and then the last item that I've got on here is, it is once again that time of the season that we need to remind our constituents that we are well within the window for pocket readings for your sewer bill. So your sewer bill for the following year will be determined based on your water usage for the months of October, November, and December. So if you are on the line or you're close, now's a good time to be conscious of where you're using water for the next 90 days. If that will have an impact on your sewer bill for the following year. So just a reminder, and we'll try to do that every week so that people remember. Okay, that's all the announcements I had. Anybody else? Alderman Parrott?
Yeah, I had a constituent or a resident of Lincoln just asked me to mention this, I guess, to the other citizens and residents of Lincoln, is that there's been a lot of burglaries of late, and repeated individuals who have been caught, and I guess due to the no cash bail that was signed by Governor Pritzker, it has allowed these individuals really to go, free without much reputation, much issue, for them, and so be diligent in locking up your garages, your houses. They'll come during the day. They'll take your lawn furniture, during midday, no, everybody's working. So, be diligent in how that you are securing your stuff, and be a good neighbor and watch out for each other. It's not a good situation.
Yeah. And to that point, I'll share some conversations I've had back and forth with an individual along those lines. It's very frustrating for people that are impacted by it. It's frustrating for people in the neighborhoods. The deputy chief knows as well as I do that if you see something suspicious, call it in, but also be mindful that unless that individual is actually doing something criminal and you see it, the police are pretty limited in what they can do. They can take a report and continue to monitor it, but be patient and understanding with the police department as well, because I know they're just as frustrated as we all are with this matter. Chief, anything to add to that?
No, I would just suggest lock your doors, lock your cars, don't leave them parked on the street or even in your driveway unlocked. Expect anything you leave out to disappear, because it has and it will. And keep an eye on your neighbors, like Mr. Parrott said.
Yep.
If you see across the street and it's bedtime and your neighbor's garage is open, go knock on their door. Say, hey, did you mean to leave that open, or you may want to close that or whatever. And look out for each other. That's all. It's going to get darker sooner. People are going to be out doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So
Yep.
Keep an eye on things and make sure everything's locked up.
Mr. Bateman and then Ms. McClellan.
I'd like to tag on to that and say, please report it. Posting it on Facebook and then complaining that the police don't do anything is not reporting it. They don't drive around with Facebook on in the squad car hoping someone is going to report something. So if you're going to make those kind of posts, please don't waste your time. We all know that bad things are happening out there, but they are limited on what they can and cannot do, as Mr. Parrott reported. But there is also a limit. If you catch the same person several times, there is consequences. So please be diligent. Help your neighbors. Call it in. You can call. You don't have to call 911. You can call the non-emergency number, dispatch, report suspicious activity, and let's all protect each other and not go down the rabbit hole each time.
Ms. McClellan.
I just wanted to qualify again that it's, like Mr. Parrott said, it's not a choice that they're making on a local level, who to prosecute and who they can and who they can't, but that was a decision that was made for them. And so, again, when you're having to deal with a situation and you're frustrated, it's like, just keep that in mind, that they probably more than anybody else would like to prosecute them, but they are just, their hands are tied at some point. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else have an announcement they'd like to share? Alderman Bateman.
I don't have an announcement, but I just wanted to say that Mrs. Rolfs and I have talked a couple times this week. We are going to start looking at how commercial vehicles are parked on the street, especially in residential areas. I appreciate everybody having small businesses and stuff. That's great, but be in mind that if you have 22-foot vehicles, tandem axle trucks and stuff, you need to be conscious of your neighbors and find a different place to park those things, because we are going to start looking at the ordinance and make some changes, because we're receiving, I know the two of us are receiving multiple complaints about people who are running businesses and their home is their business address, but they're bringing home all their construction vehicles, bobcats on trailers, lift trucks, boom trucks, and parking them all up and down the street where the neighbors can't even back out, or the people across the street. So for those of you that are doing it, I'm going to suggest you start looking for alternate locations to park those vehicles, because there is going to be changes to that ordinance to protect the neighbors around you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other announcements or comments? Okay. There is nothing else. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Or a second?
Second.
Alderman Downs made the motion to adjourn. Alderman Sanders second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This meeting is adjourned at 7:32 p.m.